Moving on to the next segment, we're going to talk about wide receivers.
The
now.
fun segment. Been waiting on
Had
this
a blast doing this.
So, wide receivers, top 5. I'll get them out the way right now. Christian Watson to me is number 5. I love his size. I love his speed. Because he played at North Dakota State, I feel like the offense limited him a lot. It's a run-first team. It was like that with Trey Lance. And now that Trey Lance, who was a top quarterback prospect, is gone, they're even more run-heavy. The tape that I was able to get my hands on, Christian Watson didn't have much action receiving because he wasn't targeted because of how the offenses ran. He can take sweeps to the house. He takes the top off the defense. If I was able to see more tape of him getting targets and getting a lot of the load,
You're calling him Larry Fitzgerald?
I probably have him higher here, but because there was limited visibility in terms of what I could see from him, I have him here. But his physical traits, I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the better receivers in his draft class. He's
6'5", 211 is crazy.
He's 6'4", but yeah.
I have him listed here 6'5", excuse me.
He's that much of a difference maker, I think, in terms of what he brings physically. Number 4 is Drake London. He has prototypical wide receiver number 1 size, 6'4". He got injured, so he didn't run a 40 time. He didn't run a 40. He has an elite catch radius. I'm not doubting that. Daniel Jeremiah said that with him, it's like 50-50 balls are more like 90-10.
I don't disagree.
I agree with that. I mean, Drake
disagree.
London is just crazy. I mean, the catches he can make, the way he can contort his body is next level. My biggest concern is that I don't think he's the most explosive athlete. I think he's not somebody who can't separate. He can separate.
Definitely can.
But he's not an explosive athlete. To me, he's comparable to a Michael Pittman Jr. I think he's a better athlete than Michael Pittman Jr. He's a more fluid one. He did play basketball.
More physical.
Yeah. I think he does have similarities to Michael Pittman Jr., but my concern for him is that he's not the best athlete.
You don't like the Mike Evans comp?
No, I don't. I think Mike Evans was a top 7 pick, and he made Johnny Manziel look like the best quarterback in the draft.
Drake London could easily be a top 10 pick.
He could be, but Mike Evans made Johnny Manziel a first-round pick, being considered to get taken 2nd overall. Everybody remembers. Everybody remembers Manziel in those Texas A&M years.
Manziel.
It was Mike Manziel. It was Mike Evans who was catching all those ridiculous
Mike Evans was
passes.
absolutely phenomenal in college. I'm not going to disagree.
Yeah.
But throw some respect on Johnny.
Number 3.
Come on, it's Johnny
Swiftly
football.
moving on.
Number
football.
3 is Treylon Burks.
I like it.
He's physical. He hauls contested catches with ease. He does have great hands, and he high points the ball well. But I just saw a lot of work on the inside, and there are some graphs that show that he's very efficient against coverage, like press coverages, but really he didn't have much reps in him. He lines up in the inside a lot. He has a lot of free releases. He lined up in multiple areas at running back, on the outside, on the inside. It was mostly on the inside. I thought most of his productivity came off of passes that he didn't have to run a lot for, like in terms of route running. I don't know how complete his route tree is.
Don't disagree.
He takes a while to accelerate, and we saw in his 40 time that the speed wasn't there. And when I watched him on tape, I didn't look at him and be like, this guy takes the top off the defense. He is super fast, and I think the 40 time reflected that. Once he does get in space, he's a bit dangerous because of his ability to make a tackler miss with the stiff arm and, just out physical them.
He's a strong dude.
But Treylon Burks to me he's good. I like him a lot. He's versatile. I have more concerns about him, his route running at the next level than I do Drake London's.
I agree.
Number 2 is Jameson Williams. I think Jameson Williams
Would have liked to see it the other way, but
he's the best deep threat in his draft. There's
By
no doubt
far,
about it.
by far.
I think if he didn't tear his ACL, he has an argument for wide receiver number 1. He does have a lean frame, but it's not as lean as Devonta Smith last season. You can argue he's just as fast as Jalen Waddle. I mean, what I see from Jameson Williams,
it's probably faster than Waddle.
the ability to have different gears. It's like he runs a 4.38 when he first gets the ball, then he goes to a 4.2.
He's got nitro boosters.
He has a jetpack on his back whenever he runs.
Fair.
I don't know if his route running is the best. He's not going to be somebody in the NFL that catches contested balls. There was a lot of times where he had the opportunity to. He never hauled them in. But because he can take the top off the defense, I feel like it makes him a threat in screens and RPOs, just sending him out deep. Jameson Williams is really good. And he does have the ability to bounce off of tacklers because he is so fast, and he is very shifty. To me, the best wide receiver is Garrett Wilson. The way he runs routes, it's janky. Like, it is janky.
It looks like he's dancing.
It's freestyle.
It's janky.
It's freestyle.
He runs routes janky, but it works for him because he's so physically gifted, athletically gifted. I think his hands are really good. He's another one that I don't think, in terms of contested catches, he didn't show much of that on tape.
Really?
At a high level.
I thought he did really
not
good
like
job.
not like a Drake London. Not
He's
like
not as physical as London or Burks.
Yeah, no.
Against Michigan, he made some impressive contested catches.
I think the best trait about Garrett Wilson is his ability after the catch.
Fair enough.
I feel like he makes defenders miss with his shiftiness.
Makes him look silly.
He's physical too.
Yep.
And you can play him in different areas. Garrett Wilson, to me, I had the most fun watching. I think his tape was the best.
Easy.
And I know some guys that I missed, Chris Olave. I like Chris Olave a lot. And I think in the right situation, he can thrive. Somebody I didn't talk about, Jahan Dotson. I'm not high on Jahan Dotson. And there's some sleepers out there like Khalil Shakir from Boise State, who has been really good too. I've watched his tape. He shows promise, but these are my top 5. Garrett Wilson, Jameson, Burks, Linden, and Watson. That's my 5.
And Mechie, any feeling towards him?
I think he's okay.
Okay. Or you want me to go?
Go ahead.
All right, so honorable mention, Christian Watson. Got to give him that respect. Everything you said is 100% true. He has the physical abilities to be great. His versatility as a wide receiver is also something that if I'm an NFL team, I'm definitely taking a look at. But his opportunity, given the fact that his quarterback was not the greatest since Trey Lance had moved to the NFL, his opportunities were limited. So that's why his stock took a hit. But he definitely has the intangibles to be a solid wide receiver. So I have him at number 6, honorable mention. Number 5 for me, Chris Olave. Now, Olave, his tape was very hit or miss for me because there were some moments where I watched and I'm thinking, wow, this guy is a great route runner. His speed is fantastic. But then there were some times where I felt like he relied on his speed a little bit too much and I was getting upset. But then there was moments where he was open, getting open, and Stroud was just not hitting him when he was getting open in space.
That's some hot takes about Stroud. You were texting me.
He was pissing me off. I'm going to be honest with you. He just escaped the pocket too soon, in my opinion, too many times, and then it blew opportunities with Olave down the field. And so, I was getting angry with Stroud for sure. Maybe I was being unfair given the fact that he is a freshman, and he had unbelievable stats. Yeah. But I think Olave, given he's drafted in a great situation, if he's on Kansas City, I think he can put up 1,000 yards. Given his speed, given the attributes that he has, his route running abilities, he could put over 1,000 yards with Kansas City. That's the only team that I'm going to give him that benefit of that because he could be the wide receiver 1 in that system. Now for me, number 4, Treylon Burks. My comp for him is A.J. Brown. I feel like I look at Treylon Burks, one of the more versatile, one of the more physical wide receivers in this wide receiver draft, and I say A.J. Brown because A.J. Brown, when I watch him play football, there is no play that I don't think that he can't grip because he has the physical attributes to do so, and he is he is so quick with the ball and his decision making when he has the ball in his hands. I look at Treylon Burks and I feel like something similar can happen with when he has the ball in his hands. Speed is not a huge issue for me personally. I look at his tape against Alabama. He was absolutely fantastic. That's his game that you got to look at and think, if this is who I'm going to get as a wide receiver, I'm 10 out of 10 okay with that every single time. I think his big playability, his ability to go up over the top, you mentioned his physicality is something that stands out to me 100%. But the fact that you can play him out of the backfield, he has a Deebo Samuel type of vibe to him as well, is something that I really look at, and I would love to have him on my football team. Number 3, I have Drake London. Now, you didn't like the Mike Evans comp, and it's understandable. 7 straight, 8 straight, whatever it is, seasons in a row of over 1,000. We're getting into a tier where he's a Hall of Famer. So if you're going to compare someone to Mike Evans, he better live up to that expectation, and he's earned that. But I do look at his physical attributes, 6'5", over 200 pounds. This guy, his catch radius is absolutely insane. Throw it up. There's a high chance he's going to catch the football, but it is dependent on where he gets drafted. I think that his route running is not the best, but I don't think it's bad enough where I'm concerned with him just being an over-the-top type receiver. He has the physical attributes. He's still fast enough. This guy is going to be great wherever he goes. Number 2 for me is actually Garrett Wilson. Now, you mentioned it. I agree 100%. He had the best tape to watch. But I think that my number 1 guy, Jameson Williams, is just more of the big play type receiver. And in the NFL, where teams are absolutely starving for a player that has big play abilities, Jameson Williams is going to be put in a situation where he's going to be drafted and he is going to be the best receiver in this draft. I look at Jameson Williams. He has nitro boosters for legs. He is so damn fast. Route running, I feel like it's being a little bit undersold. I feel like his route running is still really good. His ability to stop on a dime is very good. But most importantly for me, I look at his speed and his over-the-top abilities, and there's no one on his level. Him in space, there's no one that's catching him. If he gets the ball in his hands, there's a strong chance that he could score a touchdown. It's true. If he gets drafted to LA, this guy is going to be a potential top 5 receiver in the NFL. You pair him with Herbie, that big arm, and his ability to take off the top, Jameson Williams could be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL within 3 years.
I love the Chargers fit.
And according to Dane Brugler, who writes for The Athletic, a lot of teams consider Williams the number 1 wide receiver in the draft.
And think about it before the torn ACL. On every single board, he was the number 1 receiver. Injury or not, I look at Jameson Williams as the locked and loaded best receiver in this class.
He's a stud. I love Jameson Williams too.
And Garrett Wilson, don't get me wrong, I kind of glossed over him because I got so antsy with Jameson Williams, but his route running is fantastic. His ability to freestyle a route is great. His ability after the ball is in his hands is straight up wow. I look at him and I see glimpses of Odell. I see the route tree of a Chris Godwin. I think this guy does have the intangibles to be a great receiver, no doubt about it. I just think in terms of big play and what the NFL is nowadays, Jameson Williams is my guy.
Love Jameson Williams too. So my top 5, I would say my top 4 guys are all, I think, have the potential to be wide receiver 1s on teams, right?
Okay.
So I'm not going to argue if you have a guy at 4 and I have him 2, 1, 3, whatever. You done?
What is he doing over here?
You don't want to know.
Is he licking his lips or something?
Oh, man. Something like that. My number 5 guy, I'm still not completely sold on. There's a few guys that I feel like could change depending on these next few weeks go. But the one guy I want to shout out is George Pickens. Georgia, 5-star recruit, has battled injuries really these last few years, but 6'3", 200 pounds, ran a 4.47. He has all the physical attributes you could possibly want. Went to Georgia, obviously a highly touted recruit coming in, and he was expected to be their wide receiver 1. Unfortunately, he dealt with injuries the past couple of seasons. Tore his ACL in March of this past year, only played in a couple games, barely played. He did play in the national championship game. He had 1 reception for 50 yards, really took the top off the Alabama defense, which is something he's able to do, and pairing that with just his size and his ability to go up and catch the ball. He's someone that I'm very interested to see where he gets drafted, because if he does land in a spot that's going to utilize his skill set correctly as a true X wide receiver, which I think not utilize his skill set correctly, but rather go to a team that's going to be able to have a quarterback get him the ball downfield and really utilize his speed and size combination, I think he'll probably be a 2nd round pick is my guess. Maybe he gets into the 1st in those later picks. But let's get into the top 4. I think these are all the top 4 guys in this class. All of them are phenomenal. Number 4 for me is Jameson Williams. I think Williams
Lord,
has
mercy, Joel.
the best speed in the class. His play speed is a 10 out of 10.
Said you were the best. What are you doing?
He's a guy who, if he ran, probably would have ran in the low 4.3s. His route running is good. I don't think it's great. His hands are good. Don't think it's great. And his catch radius or his contested catches is something that I do struggle with.
So because he's not making spectacular one-handed grabs, he doesn't have great hands?
No, I think his hands are good. I don't think they're great, is what I said.
Go ahead.
6'2", 180. I would like to be a little bit bigger, but I think his size and speed combination is more than good enough. He was at Ohio State his first 2 seasons. Really didn't get any burn there. To be fair, he's behind 3 guys that might go in the 1st round with JSN, who's going to be a 1st round pick next year, maybe the best receiver in the class.
He's a freak.
Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. So he was kind of buried in that depth chart, but goes to Alabama, really showed out. 79, 1572, and 15 touchdowns this past year, averaging nearly 20 yards per reception. I mean, Jameson Williams is a stud, and 1,300 of his 29 yards, 1329 of his 1561 yards came when he was deemed open. So he's not someone that is going to go up and make it that many contested catches, which is something I'm a bit worried about. He only had 4 contested catches the entire season, so the tape kind of matched up with the statistics, but he's ridiculously fast. He doesn't fight through contact as much, which isn't surprising. He's only 180, but being able to be that fast at 6'2", and just the way the NFL is, he's going to be a top 15 pick, I think. I would love the Chargers. That's really going to utilize his skill set correctly. Keenan Allen getting up there in age. Mike Williams had just re-signed, but even still, having another weapon for Herbert when that Chargers team is already so loaded and it's almost like a luxury pick, even though they could use probably a defensive lineman, is something that makes sense because he's going to translate to wins right away. That was my number.
They need a defensive lineman?
They need a linebacker and
no. I understand what you're saying. Interior defensive line.
Interior, yeah,
correct.
Not edge. Interior defensive lineman for sure. So Jameson, number 4. Listen, these guys are all tier 1 to me. So I know he's your number 1. He was your number 2. He's your number 4.
This guy Treylon
Stop
is
apologizing, man.
Nah, you can
Stand
apologize.
on your damn 2 feet.
No, because I
you
think
should apologize.
I think it's important to realize that just because I have one guy 4 doesn't mean I'm low on him.
Just because you want to kiss Treylon Burks does not mean that he's better than Jameson.
Can I get through my list? Maybe Treylon Burks isn't even number 1.
He is number 1.
Maybe he's number 3.
No way.
Get into number 3 is Drake London.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew
Number
it.
3, Drake London from USC. 6'4", 220, an absolute mammoth of a man. He's just going to go up and get the ball physical. But,
Yes, he's huge.
Michael mentioned it when we were talking to him on his interview. I think his...
That was the weirdest transition ever.
What?
No, because I drank out of a straw after saying he's huge. This guy is sick.
Drew was like this. He was like, oh, he's huge.
I was laughing. This guy's a sicko. Put him in jail. God forbid. Now I have to
Somebody
hide drinking water.
Put that on no context pick aside right there. No context pick aside.
Don't do that to me, man.
Please do.
No context. If you do that to me, I'm coming after you. I'm reporting your page.
They got to do it.
No context pick aside.
I don't know context, man.
God forbid
great page.
you have a straw and you try to save the environment with a hydro flask.
Yeah, God forbid.
You're sus, apparently.
You just want something nice and cold down your throat. No problem.
My God. You're sick.
But Drake London, let's get into him. 6'4", 220. Like I've mentioned multiple times, came in as a freshman, was really impressive. 39 receptions, 506 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Great against press, had an 88.5 receiving grade against press, according to PFF. He's someone that is very underrated when it comes to that. I think his release, especially being 6'4", 6'5", has extremely quick feet for his size.
Yep.
He's able to separate not only at the line of scrimmage, but also at the top of routes as well. So he's going to be able to create separation with his size and athleticism, but also with technique too. He had 20-plus yard press.
Come on, bro.
Are you done? Oh, come on. What do you mean, come on, bro?
What do you
Bro's
mean?
over here moaning in my ear. Like, what do you want me to say?
You said it, moan, bro. I didn't moan.
You did something.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What's her name on NBA Live? Damn it.
On NBA Live?
What's her name? Richard Jefferson, Kendrick Perkins.
Oh, who's on the show?
Yes, that she got caught crazy. That
NBA Today?
oh my God. Whatever it is, you don't
Wasn't
know her
Candace
name.
Parker, was it?
No, damn it. Come on,
Rose
guys. I
Gold.
needed you guys.
Rose Gold?
No, go ahead.
You're
Give your
gonna-
wide receiver.
I know you're talking about Chine.
There we go. That's the one.
That was a nuts little snippet there. She yeah, Perkins was like, what? Perkins looked at her so crazy.
They both did.
That was bad funny. All right, we're getting back into Drake London.
Yeah,
Are
keep
you
going,
done?
keep
Okay,
going.
my fault, bro. I've God forbid I've been
be
interrupted once or
professional, bro.
twice.
Come
No,
on.
this guy has been on one.
To say the
Be
least.
professional.
Okay.
Keep going.
professional.
Keep it going,
You have
man.
some
over here.
audacity.
We have a professional company over here moaning. We got to make this R-rated this episode. Jeez. All right, Drake
It was
London.
a bird noise.
A bird noise. I've
Yes.
never heard a bird make that noise in my life.
You don't study birds?
You do? What's your favorite bird?
Can't even name one.
Mockingbird.
Thank God.
Mockingbird.
Thank God.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice, bro.
Yeah.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
You don't
poor
really
guy
strike me as a
Joel,
bird
man.
guy. Yeah, God forbid.
He tried to get through his wide receiver.
can't even get through
You know what?
4.
I'm not even mad. I'm not even mad because you had Jameson Williams 4. Your
Okay,
list
you
is
have
there.
Drake London 3. Just go on to your 2-1, man.
Can I finish
You're
my
getting
Drake London
tired.
take for
No
God
one
forbid?
cares. No one cares about this list anymore.
Jesus, it's better than both of your lists.
Oh my God.
Number 4, Drake London. We talked
You said
about it.
3. He was
Three.
Drake.
This now we're
guy's
talking about
folding
it.
now.
Hurry up, man.
He's got me all over the
Damn.
place. He's great. Okay, Drake London's great. Let's move on. He was number 3. Let's move on to number 2, Garrett Wilson. He had probably the best tape out of everyone I was watching.
Did I not?
Yeah, Treylon Burks. Yeah, That's your number one.
You shouldn't. I've said Treylon Burks my number one receiver since like January since like November. Really.
Were you one of those guys that had their drafts? Treylon Burks ran a 4.41. He's the number one receiver off the board. Treylon Burks ran a 4.42. He's the number one receiver.
Oh, with all my draft? Oh, yeah. I should have, honestly. He could have ran a 4.8. But no, Garrett Wilson was phenomenal. Watching his tape was one of the most fun I've ever watched. All of these receivers up there with Treylon. 4.3 40, 6 foot, 180, a bit undersized, but he doesn't show it, right? He's a smaller guy, but when you're watching him play, he looks like he's like 6'2", 6'3". His ability to go up, create separation, high point the ball, you would think he's a few inches taller. My comp to him is actually Calvin Ridley. I know that I feel like that's been floated around before,
100%.
But I really like that comp for him. Another guy who could play on the outside or in the slot, who I think Treylon Burks could do that as well. In 2020, nearly 70% of his snaps are from the slot, but moved outside a lot more in 2021 and played primarily outside. 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He's great in and out of routes. He has different releases that really keep DBs on their feet. His body control is the best in this class. As I mentioned, small frame, but great at contested catches. Best release. Probably has the best separation. He's able to create separation at the release, midpoint, and at the top of the routes. I think Garrett Wilson, day one, is going to be one of the better receivers in this draft class. And number one, you know is coming. Treylon Burks from Arkansas. I don't know why everyone's kind of down on him. I feel like in the college football season, a lot more people were hyping him up to be this top 3 receiver. And then the last couple of months, he's kind of been pushed down to like bottom of the first round type of guy. The 40 time, I don't really care about. If you look at his speed score, which once again contributes or takes into account his weight plus his 40 time, because he's 225, right? You could run a 4.3 at 180, 190 pounds, but Treylon Burks, who's running a 4.5 at 225 pounds, they're equally impressive. He's in the 98th percentile when it comes to that. He hit 22.6 miles per hour in week 5 this past college football season. That would have been the fastest run in the NFL. His speed is not a concern with me. I do agree that it does take some time. At least his acceleration isn't as elite as his top end speed. His top end speed is one of the best in college football, and it's going to translate to the NFL, I believe, too. The one issue, or not issue, but the one thing that might be stopping people just because the stats aren't there, but that's mostly because Arkansas doesn't throw the ball much. Arkansas had 294 attempts. To compare to the other guys, USC threw the ball 500 times. Ohio State 500. Ohio State over 500 times. Arkansas had 2,700 passing yards, and Burks accounted for 40% of those yards. So he had 1,100 yards, but only passing for 2,700. Teams knew he was their wide receiver one, and they couldn't stop him. He was 15th in yards after catch per reception, so he's able to have great yak ability. Second highest passer rating when targeting, 155.3. 2019, as a freshman, he led the team in receiving yards, which once again something that I really covet, being able to come in to your college career and being able to dominate right away. I think the ability to use him all over the field, I think he's his best, or he'll contribute the most as a big slot. I think that's where he fits perfectly in. A.J. Brown is a really good comp, even though he could play on the outside as well. The ability to put him in the backfield, in the slot, out wide, I think it's going to take the right OC to really unlock him to his full potential like we've seen with Debo. I don't think he's good as a runner as Debo, but he has that ability to hit a hole and take it to the crib like you mentioned with A.J. Brown. Goes up and gets the ball, great at high point in it. So Treylon Burks, my number one guy.
Can I ask you, is it situational that he's number one, where you believe that he's at a draft position right now that you think he could be the best receiver in this class? Or do you think that he can go to any team and you'll believe that he's the best receiver in the class?
I'm going to go into the season thinking like he's going to be my number one guy. I do think certain OCs can unlock him more. Okay. Depending on how creative you can get with him. Because like I mentioned, if you're putting him primarily in the slot, I think he's gonna feast. Depending on what other OCs think of him, more of an outside guy. But he lined up all over the place. Outside, slot, backfield. Very Debo Samuel-esque, being able to move him all over the field. I think that's kind of where the NFL sort of position list. Like I think this next season we're going to see Jamar Chase get carries, Elijah Moore get carries. I think the Debo Samuel thing kind of opened it up, and OCs are going to look at their receivers and say, whoever our best playmaker is, let's just get them the ball. Let's not overthink things. Get them the ball, whether that's the backfield, pitches, whatever it might be. I think Treylon Burks fits that very well.
Yeah, you spoke very well.
Thank you.
Now,
God, yeah, sorry. Imagine how well I would speak if I wasn't interrupted 8 times.
You weren't. It was just once.
Maybe twice.
Oh, kiss me, brother. Drake and Josh, man.
Yeah,
classic.
no,
you know they're not
you.
cool.
I saw that.
not.
I saw that
Yeah,
TikTok.
they're not.
His Barstool.
Well, I'll tell you
interview,
what, Drake Bell is canceled as sin.
Somebody
You know
actually.
why? Yes,
Yeah.
thing in Mexico. I'll leave it at that.
How do I put this lightly?
Yeah, essentially.
Something that
You should never do,
Yeah.
ever.
So, somebody mentioned this. I don't know what's your opinion on it, but Barstool, Dave Portnoy, Stool Presidente, he's on this podcast called the BFFs Pod, where like he's one of the main hosts, and they report on like TikTok drama and stuff like that. And a lot of people are like, he's too old to be talking about this
Dave
stuff.
Portnoy?
Bro, I saw one TikTok clip where he was trying to play a Instagram DM like voice chat.
That was Drake Bell's.
Yeah, and they were saying like, how do I put this on speaker? Like you could put a DM on speaker or something. They were calling him a grandpa.
Old. Yeah, he does.
Drake Bell, after like Josh Peck went on his media tour, he dropped the podcast with his wife. It was the most awkward.
Drake Bell did?
Yeah. It was the most awkward.
It sucks that they're not boys.
It was the most awkward like 30 minutes I've ever spent just listening to something. Drake Bell spoke so much and said absolutely nothing. I was like, what is he saying? Just talking in circles.
In life where Drake Bell is just...
He's not the cool guy anymore.
He's not.
Yeah.
Damn, he used to be cool.
He was cool.
He was
as sin.
Yeah.
He was so cool, man. It's tragic.